Hey friends, today we're going to be talking about Silicon Valley Bank. It's Saturday morning and I don't normally film on Saturdays, but I felt like this was really important. We need to talk about this. So there have been some interesting things happening in the banking world. I don't know if you heard about Silicon Valley Bank. It's really important. This is really important. Okay, share this with your friends if you have not heard about Silicon Valley Bank and what has happened with them, because it may set a precedence in regards to what's going to happen with the banking system in the future. So first of all, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Victoria. If we haven't met, we talk about all things money here. And here's the thing. I want you to live your best, most profitable life. I want you to leverage your money as a tool so you can do whatever you want to with your life. And that can be kind of hard to gauge in today's society when we're being told a zillion different things. I'm a former financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, but this is stuff that you need to know. Okay, let's get into it. So, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, here's what happened yesterday. So, turns out a bunch of people go to make withdrawals from Silicon Valley Bank and they can't. The bank did not have enough cash on hand to make withdrawals. Let's talk about that for a hot second. Why is that? I don't know if you've been hearing about this a lot, that banks, you can go to a bank and say, I need $1,000 for my account, and they say, I don't have that on hand. What's happening is they're not keeping enough cash on hand. The reason why is they're not required to by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve sets limits that the banks must adhere to. Those limits are called capital requirements, and they help to make sure that the banks can service their customer in whatever way they need to. So it's for you and me, the people who actually have our accounts with the bank. Here's the deal. A bunch of people said, okay, Silicon Valley Bank, we're taking money out of the bank. And let me just check and see how much. I was looking at an article and it said, it said how much people were going to take out. And I think it was, I can't find it, whatever, you get what I'm talking about. So the bank essentially shuttered, closed. And here's the funny part. Okay, you guys, I have an Etsy shop. I sell these. They're affirmation cards, like words matter, blah, blah, blah. And so they say on here, like, financial abundance is within my grasp, and I did all these. Anyway, so here's how this relates to SVB. I have an Etsy shop, and I actually forgot that I had it open because with our move and everything, I intended to close it for a while until I could figure out my inventory and all of that. You know how it goes with a physical product. So I get an order this week, and it's someone who's in Australia, which I thought was hilarious because I'm like, dude, you're paying $40 for shipping. But, via con Dios, I will happily send you a deck, and, I guess you need it. So I get an email from Etsy yesterday saying they bank with Silicon Valley Bank and that deposits will be delayed. Let's talk about bail-ins for a hot second. So what's a bank bail-in? I don't know if you guys have heard of this term. It's similar to a bailout, but different. What happens is when a bank is in distress, rather than a bailout, which the federal government gives them money to stay afloat, a bail-in means they take your money. They take your money, and they can legally do that to help them stay afloat. Okay, so bail-ins have been a thing for a while. We haven't really heard about it happening in a while because basically we've had this bull market that has happened for a while. Like, look at 2020. If you looked at just S&P 500, the return was about 20%. If you had your holdings in S&P, like even an index fund, it was about 20%. So we've had this bull market happening, and people haven't really been like, dude, I need to get all my cash out of the bank. So Our economy is run on debt. That's how our economy works right now, debt-based economy. So we can only charge the credit card for so long. We can only like to-ching and continue to charge the credit card as a country. So right now we're super debt heavy. Look at what's happening with our government and with the deficit. They've had to raise the deficit because we can't pay our bills. So all of this is related. Another thing I want you to know is those people with Silicon Valley Bank, who, by the way, the bank is like, they didn't come into work yesterday. They didn't come into work. They just like we're closed. Do you think the FDIC is going to cover that? We'll just wait for a hot second until you answer. Okay. Do you think the FDIC is going to cover that? FDIC is insurance for the bank, right? Just like SIPC that I mentioned in my Madoff video is insurance for your investment account. But remember, what we learned from the Madoff situation was SIPC did not pay anybody. All those people just lost their money. And what I want you to know at FIDC about FIDC is, and I was going to show you on my phone, but I got it going on my phone. So I saw this the other day and yesterday, and I thought it was amazing. Okay, there's more than $22 trillion in the US banking system. FDIC has 124 billion in balance. Okay, so think about like car insurance. It's the same thing. I'll get to my car insurance analogy in a second, but FDIC assets will only cover 1.25% of deposits. Essentially, what we have is state minimums. Like, let's say you have car insurance and you have state minimums and you hit a Ferrari. Where do you think that the money to pay for that Ferrari is coming from? Not from insurance, because you didn't have enough insurance. And that's the same thing with FDIC. They don't have enough money in that insurance system to cover deposits such as this. So if you are with Silicon Valley Bank, I'm sorry. And it makes me wonder if I'm ever going to get my 80 bucks from Etsy. Probably not. I think I'm going to officially close my shop. And by the way, if you like stuff like this, you can go to victoriasexton.com and order directly from me and you don't have to go through Etsy. Let's see. The last thing I want to talk about is, what do we do? This is not going to be the only bank that we are going to see that's going to fail. So what do we do? Okay, so I have been wondering this for a while. And of course, given that we're in such a debt-based economy and the Fed is so hell-bent on crushing our economy, and if you saw any of the interviews with Jerome Powell this week, you'll see that that's true, that I think it was Kennedy who was saying to Jerome Powell, so you want to crush inflation, by your numbers, essentially we'd have to have 10% unemployment, which is like Great Depression days. And Jerome Powell didn't even blink. Okay, so we have that poop show going on. Okay, so we have that high inflation, all of that happening. People are experiencing layoffs, and we have this banking thing that's kind of happening. What do we do to prepare? So this is not like anything that we've experienced if you're about my age, like in my lifetime. And so it's really hard to think about, how am I going to prepare for this when this is unlike anything that I've experienced? Here's what I do know. We need to make sure our basics is covered. Food, water, shelter, okay? Have a couple months worth of food in your pantry. If you do not, go get some canned food. Okay, go get like canned beans, go get some extra rice, go to Costco and get like the big bags of it, because you can live off of rice and beans for a little bit. And yes, you're going to get sick of it, but if something catastrophic happens, you will be okay. Prepare in any way you can. Like if you have started canning like me, we're going to can some more this week, right? We are going to preserve. If you have one bank account, rethink that situation. Something I was talking with my husband about last night was we might, like, if we're super smart people, okay, and if we can swing it financially, what we should do is open up in local credit unions, because we have one large bank that's like nationwide. Um, but then we should also open up local credit union accounts, have a joint account that has enough money in there to cover the basics. Because if something happens to one of our other banks, we can pay for housing, we can pay rent, we can pay for our utilities, and we can pay for anything else, our basic needs. We probably don't have to go to the grocery store for a while because, I am the way I am. What is your situation? How would you be impacted if your bank all of a sudden is like, nope, we're closed. And by the way, because of bail-ins, we can keep your money. Ooh, like none of this is good stuff. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but let me tell you, we have to start thinking about this. We have to think about it in these terms because what if it does happen? And I go back to an interview I saw with Lynette Zhang, and now she works for a trading company that they do physical gold and silver. So she's probably biased one way, but I remember her saying, we're coming to the end of our life cycle of our fiat money system. And because no one country has had a fiat money system that has lasted for hundreds of years. It just hasn't happened. I mean, think about like in Roman times, they started out with silver. And then essentially, like later on, they adulterated their money. They were mixing silver with other things. And like inflation became a big issue because they went away from their standard of silver. So like stuff like this has been happening for a long time. And when I think about the possibilities, okay, which is, by the way, remember how I've been talking about central bank digital currency? Like that's a big possibility. And I've been talking about the possibility of some of the other things that are happening. But if you think about it, okay, they want us to go to this digital currency. Why? One, to reassess all the value of our money. And do you think it will be reassessed so that people are like, hey, you get more money? I don't know, but you do the math. And two, after that, the government's able to see every transaction we make. And with the things that are going in the banking system, and think like what happened with PNC Bank and Donald Trump Jr. There was a guy here in San Antonio who I think the name of his business, excuse me, was like San Antonio Pew Pew Works or something like that, but not Pew Pew. You know what I mean? You feel me? So his bank was just closed by B of A. These squirrely things are happening with the banking system, and I think it would behoove us. It would be advantageous for us to figure out what's our personal plan. So I'm going to encourage you. First of all, like, let's get informed about what's happening with some of these banks, because it didn't just happen overnight. And secondly, think about like, what does this mean to you? A lot of the things and sometimes I feel like I'm preaching, like literally we're in Sunday school. When I'm talking about your money, a lot of this stuff isn't fun. Like a lot of the stuff isn't like, ooh, I want to do my bills on Saturday night, right? That's not super fun, but you need to know. And right now I feel like we're on the precipice of something that is maybe not so great, a change in our financial system. And we need to be informed and we need to be on top of it, because either, it's like that saying, like lions or sheep. We don't want to be one of the sheeple people. Okay. We want to be one of the lions and understanding what's happening, taking advantage of all of the possible things we could take advantage of in this situation. I don't mean that in a sleazy, scummy kind of way, but I mean like do what's best for us in our situation, our family. So That's what's happening with Silicon Valley Bank. Again, if you have an Etsy shop, I think that you should put it on vacation, on hold, on whatever right now, because I don't know if you're going to get your money. That's a very big possibility. So, yeah. So that's what's happening with Silicon Valley Bank. You need to know about this. I wish I had better news, but it seems like, and you tell me if this isn't the situation, every day it's something. Okay, so train derailed, toxic chemicals in the river, and like I'm thinking, how's that gonna impact like fish and wildlife and farms and people's ability to eat? Oh, and then this happened, and this happened, and this bank's failing. And guess what? Jerome Powell says that, he's gonna crash the economy, and that's gonna be cool. And it's like, as a person living right now, there's so many things to think about. I just don't even think even 10 years ago, like there was this much stuff going on a daily basis. So we all need to take a breath, but stay informed. I myself am going to go fertilize my tomatoes because they're looking a little sad. And that's another thing. Grow a garden. Grow a garden. We don't know what's happening with our food system. We don't know what's happening with our economy. Grow a garden. Like stockpile flour. Like make sure you know how to feed yourself if something crazy happens, because crazy has been happening for the past 3 years. All right, friends, I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope that you got something out of this video. And I want you to comment below, have you been banking at Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, or do you know someone who's banked there? Is this kind of thing a concern for you? I'm actually very, I don't know if concerned, because it doesn't keep me up at night, but I'm a little concerned about bail-ins, because they can just take your money and they could be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. We'll give you 5 shares of our, company stock, which is worthless, right? So I am a little concerned about that. Comment below, tell me, what are your concerns and how are you mitigating them, or is it just keeping you up at night? All right, friends, take care. Have a fantastic Saturday, and I'll see you in my next video.